Superman was pretty good. Fantastic Four was pretty good too. And I feel like that was the reaction of the majority of the people who watched those movies. But then when I walked out of the theater, I had this kind of weird feeling of emptiness. So I've been thinking about it for a little bit now, and I think I got it. I think the reason is basically nobody learns anything. In Superman, we meet Superman, who is completely selfless, only wants to help and save other people, and he is the embodiment of the symbol of hope. By the end of the movie, we see Superman, who is completely selfless, only wants to help and save other people, and is an embodiment of the symbol of hope. Now, you can make an argument that with Superman, that's actually not a terrible thing to do. With Superman, it might actually make more sense to have his values challenged, but then at the end, we see him standing up for what he believes in. But is it even challenged? I mean, the biggest hit that Superman probably takes in that entire movie was Lex Luthor releasing the footage of his parents saying that Superman was there to conquer Earth, to colonize Earth, essentially, and having everybody hate him for it. That was the biggest single hit. So that is your challenge right there, right? That should have challenged his values. But what does he do? Does he go into hiding? Does he go to his parents' house? No, he immediately goes to save crypto, just like Trump tried to. Wouldn't it have made a lot more sense, and wouldn't it have humanized him a lot if he actually stopped being a Superman right there? If his views are actually challenged. If right there he went back to his parents and then he was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I'm strong enough. And then by his parents saying something or by some catalyst, he actually overcomes it and then goes back to being a Superman and then saves the day. But no, he actually does that to recover from a physical injury after being exposed to kryptonite, rather than having his views challenged. I feel like that cheapens it a lot. And not only that, but another thing that kind of bugged me a lot was Lois Lane, right? Not even watching the movie, just from watching the trailers, I thought that the arc of the story was going to be Lois Lane doesn't understand that Superman does these things kind of irresponsibly without even thinking so much about the consequences. So that was the whole thing with like what is it called, like Bolivia or whatever, that Superman stopped the war at, right? So I thought what was going to happen was she was going to go from, oh, he's this kind of childish person who just doesn't really understand the extent of his influence, to, oh, he actually does understand the consequences of his actions, but even after being aware of all the consequences and all the complications and implications and all of that, he still decides to save as many people as possible. Not out of being naive, but out of being courageous. I feel like that was going to be the breakthrough in their relationship, right? But no, that isn't why Lois Lane is conflicted about dating Clark Kent. The real reason that she says in the movie is he's kind of weird. Really? It's Superman is kind of weird? So you're not sure if you want to date him anymore because he's kind of weird?
How's it going with that guy you were seeing? You were saying you weren't sure about it?
Yeah. He's, well, strange. I was gonna break up with him, actually. We had this huge fight, and he told me he loved me, and it just didn't.
And there's no significant conversation or resolutions or anything like that between the two of them. And then at the end, they're just, everything's fine now because Lex Luthor is in prison. And that somehow makes Superman not weird anymore. Right? It's weird because Superman hasn't changed. Superman was a completely Superman was a completely selfless being from the start. And there was no significant moment that showed that Lois Lane's perception of Superman has changed in any significant way. But because Lex Luthor is dead, or the final boss is in prison, everything has to be fine now. So they just hug and kiss and, oh, I was wrong about you. It's like, what? And not only that, but the public who saw the message of Superman's parents saying that, hey, son, conquer this fucking planet and fuck as many women as you can possibly fuck. They're all fucking cool with him now.
We all owe him an enormous apology. He is, of course, the hero we always thought he was.
Like, just because Lex Luthor is in jail, everything is resolved. And look at Fantastic Four. The movie starts out with Fantastic Four loving each other. They trust each other, they make jokes, and then we end the movie with them loving each other, and then them trusting each other with their lives. You know, like, Reed and Sue have this significant moment where Sue is hurt by Reed's way of thinking, which is to consider the absolute worst case scenario rather than being hopeful and having a positive outlook. In Reed's mind, that mindset has helped him prevent bad things from happening, but Sue thinks that Reed just doesn't have enough faith in the family. Now, that's a beautiful conflict. That's a really good and interesting topic to explore. And how do they deal with that? How do we solve this fundamental differences between these two that love each other more than anything else? Well, we just beat the shit out of Galactus. And now that Galactus is not a threat anymore, everything is fine, right? Everything is dandy and good. And they just never talk about it anymore after that. Like, what? And Fantastic Four being what it is, there's so many avenues to explore when it comes to character arcs. Johnny is a very selfish human being. He only thinks about himself. And that was why in the comics it was so impactful when he actually sacrificed himself for everybody else. But Johnny is actually a really nice guy in the movie. He makes a couple of jokes to Ben, I guess, but he's a really good fucking guy already.
I didn't turn into a monster.
You are gonna be the best mom.
The Thing, Ben Grimm, he is so hurt by people treating him like a monster and nobody liking him. He constantly struggles to overcome that, constantly struggles to accept himself for who he is. Everybody fucking loves him in the movie. Everybody loves him. He's walking around the streets and everybody's like, hey, it's the Thing. Right? And then this girl shows interest in him. What? And as a team, as Fantastic Four, the most significant challenge that they face is that the public starts to hate him. Public starts to fight against them, saying that they should sacrifice Franklin. Now again, that's a great conflict, right? Same thing with Superman when everybody starts to hate him. I think that's a very interesting topic, especially now because there's so many, cancellations and all of that, right? That's been a big part of our culture. That's a very interesting avenue to explore. What do they do with that? They just have Sue do literally like a minute-long speech, and then everything is fine now. Everything, like the whole entire world comes together to follow Reed's plan. I mean, the character that has had the biggest change, it was actually Silver Surfer, and she got like 2 minutes of screen time. You know what I'm talking about? It's like the most important thing in these movies is not the character struggles and inner conflicts and challenges to their viewpoints. That's not the most important thing at all. The most important thing in these movies is the big battle, is the external conflict. And that, I think, is the biggest difference between these two movies and early Marvel, when everybody loved these superhero movies. In Iron Man, who is Tony at the start of the movie? All he cares about is making money, becoming famous, and living this playboy lifestyle. That's the number one most important thing to him. And at the end of the movie, announced to the world, against the interests of the company, that he is Iron Man. He's not the CEO of Stark Industries. He's not a playboy. He's not a billionaire. He is Iron Man. He actually steps down from being the CEO. And that's right there. That's such a big change. That's such a satisfying character arc. Captain America, he goes from being this dude who entrusts the authority in America without question to, by the end of his whole saga, he actually becomes something of a fugitive. He goes completely against the authority.
We'll fight you too.
Thor goes from this selfish brat who thinks that he's just better than everybody else to falling in love with this mortal human being and having her be the most important thing in his life. And Ant-Man, well, to be fair, Ant-Man just goes right back to breaking the law. But you see, there's always been these changes and overcoming of challenges to viewpoints, at least in the first movie that they are in. Not only Superman and Fantastic Four, but the majority of the movies that are coming out seems to not give a fuck about the characters themselves or and how they change. They only give a fuck about the external conflict that's happening so that the movie can look cool in the trailers. I do think that we are coming back, I do think that these movies are getting better. But really, like that, it's just a little bit frustrating for me because like that's all you gotta do. Anyways, yeah, that's just what I thought because I watched a movie and it's like it's almost worse if the movie is like actually pretty good because if it's just terrible from start to finish like Thor, Love and Thunder, then you can just kind of laugh at the movie. But these movies are like these movies had really good ideas and they actually made me care a little bit. And it's such a letdown, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. All right, bye.